Welcome to Cinema Gulp. I'm Ben.
And I'm Cece.
And we're going to do a Gulp review of Baby Driver. Baby Driver marks Edgar Wright's most prolific effort to date. This movie has everything: high-caliber performances, amazing and unique action sequences, witty dialogue from a razor-sharp script, and Wright's unbelievable style of direction. This being not only his most heart-pounding and intense film, it's also just a terrific crime thriller. Ansel Elgort is going to be a movie star. Powering through this film with the look and charm of a young Val Kilmer, he displays some chops for the physical acting, as well as the ability to understand the tone of each scene, as they all play out so differently from one another. This movie's awesome. So Cece is our special guest here on Cinema Gulp doing the Gulp review with us today. Cece, what did you think of Baby Driver?
I was so drawn in by the calisthenics of the filmmaking and the performances. I thought the ensemble had a real bubblegum popcorn creativity going through the scenes, the way it's cut. I love the self-awareness and the self-referential tips and nods to pop culture. I thought it was a film that really addressed the kind of what does it mean to be raised on iPods and certain kinds of technology. So I really felt like the millennial pulse through this film was phenomenal. And I felt like there was times where I felt like Jamie Foxx felt like a dinosaur. With his film history and as someone in our culture, we've been watching him for a decade. We've seen him win an Oscar. And so there was really a lot of different nods to different generations that I thought was really interesting. And it was amazing to me to see Kevin Spacey in a more kind of like weird kind of variation on Obi-Wan Kenobi, but really stylish and had just great soundtrack and great beats.
I think we've seen Jamie Foxx in 3 decades if we count in living color.
Well, as the famous scholar Leon Spinks has said, any boxer who represents himself has a food for a client.
I didn't even really pick up on it until you just said it's really interesting about the iPod, because the movie itself is based on us sort of feeling and visualizing Baby's way of how he lives through life, whether it's through driving cars as a getaway driver or meeting a girl or walking through the street just picking up coffee. Everything is a soundtrack in his life because of this problem that he has with his ears. And I love the movie because the movie addresses that, where it pretty much plays out as we do, where we're obsessed with our iPods and we always have them in, or our phones or whatever. We're always listening to music and zipping through tunes. The movie does that, and it makes it so fantastic to watch.
Yeah, it mimics that compulsiveness of the way we're able to have dual tracks and how he has different iPods for different moods and different activities. And I thought some of the most stylish sequences deal with beats and how the laundromat became a turntable and then analog versus digital. And I love the fact that we don't even question his whole obsession with making analog and the whole mixtape.
Like, we don't really question why he's mixing analog to cassette tapes, and he's got an extensive set of awesome looking vinyl, which, you know, his character is really fleshed out by the things you see around him and by what he does, but not really with any exposition, except very little, because you kind of had to have that.
Yeah, and I like where the Emperor Has No Clothes, where we're seeing behind the curtain of his psychology. You get the sense of this, because of his disability and also because of his generation, this kind of like autism, or this emotional autism that he has, even when relating to Lily James or his mentor and Kevin Spacey. Anyone who has any kind of hearing disability, like, you know, you have to have this kind of smokescreen. You have to have different ways of proving your intelligence, which he does, and that's kind of creates this charm around his character. And it's also one of the reasons that she kind of falls for him.
I thought Ansel Elgort was really good. I didn't know much about him, and I wasn't sure, because of the great cast in this movie, who was really going to kind of steal it. And maybe he was like the main guy by name of title, but he really was the main guy, and he carried the whole movie really good.
Films like La La Land, films like Baby Driver are going to do so well because it is this amazing, smart escape vehicle. And in this case, it really is a vehicle of you know, that first scene with the Subaru taking a kind of like a family car and just kind of going for broke. I don't know if that was like a placement or not, but I've always loved Subarus, and I love the way that they use different cars for different heists.
The action in this movie is amazing. Edgar Wright has always done more British comedy-driven stuff. This movie just made me love him way more because it wasn't really a comedy. It's sort of a pulpy crime caper it's got comedic edge in it, and it's got a lot of charm in it, and it's not a depressing, dark movie, even though it's really, really, really violent. Like, surprisingly violent. In a good way. I liked it. It was nice. The guy that surprised me was John Hamm, who I always really like as a character actor in film, even though I never watched whatever that fucking show he was in. I never watched it. Okay. Mad Babies. He starts out real strong, but as the film kind of reaches like its climax, dare I say, he begins to ham it up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the film goes off the rails a little bit more to like kiss kiss zoom zoom for my liking. I feel like some of the nuance, some of the real tenderness kind of got diluted a bit.
I'm with you. I think you and I were both like, it's dragging a little bit at the end. Yeah.
What I really liked is that this is like a tribal theme song of like why men should learn how to drive manual. Like why stick shift is still an option. In a super sort of like Tesla world where everything is automated, there's certain scenes that dropping the hammer, all of the sleight of hand that he uses in the car scenes, to do something so cliched at the end, like the car dropping off the car. It's the only thing I kind of wasn't so hypnotized by.
I'm 100% agreeing with you. I don't want to spoil what any of that scene actually means. The whole thing kind of falls into the cliche trap a little bit at the end, and then it does have 2 or 3 times where I thought the movie was ending, but then it kind of had another scene and then another scene. Not like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King or anything, but I love the dialogue where they talk, where she starts singing Deborah, which is one of my all-time favorite Beck songs from Midnight Vultures, and I was like, yes.
That really
and then
resonated with you. I saw that in the cinema.
I almost started singing it. The music in this movie was my favorite thing in the movie. The way music is played with the editing and the way it's played with the action scenes, it fuels the entire movie.
It's amazing the way it's so seamless and so clever and just so... It's like a different kind of media. Like it's crunching all these different kinds of genres into this really stylish piece of enjoyment, you know? It's really all about joy and visuals and bravado. There's just like so much brio, you know?
And Edgar Wright has such a good handle on everything from page to read-throughs through actual shooting, because someone can easily write a movie where the main character has an obsession with music, and then not ever make the audience member watching the film feel the way he feels about it. And this movie totally makes you feel and connect with the way he feels.
I know you're a big fan of High Fidelity, and this has that crunchiness to it, that kind of sonic splendor where you're feeling this sense of your childhood, your adulthood, your teenage years. You're sampling different memories through the music.
This is a masterpiece of editing, in my opinion, from the sound design to the shots to everything, because they played with an already shot film that was shot so amazing, and you can tell how much they shot, because especially in those car chase scenes, you see so many different angles being played with that they probably had just a giant playground of things that they could choose from. And they're like, okay, and they got so creative in this, and this to me is a whole nother level of their editing. And the action scenes with the music, the guns were going to the beat of the song was incredible, and it could have came off so lame, and it didn't. So what did you think about overall performances in the film?
I actually think the best performance in the film was the direction. I think that Edgar Wright harnessed the right charisma and the right beats and he just knows how to build characters and build scenes. I think Ansel really impressed me with his physical virtuosity in the first opening sequence. With what I think Edgar Wright was trying to go for in this kind of portrait of the artist as a young accidental gangster, I think that he really delivers on that.
A lot of times they write a character that's layered, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a chatty character. So it's up to the actor to really figure out a way to convey all those layers to us by their body movements and their mannerisms and their facial expressions. And that's what impressed me about Ansel Elgort, is that he did all that stuff with a pair of sunglasses on and iPods in his ears. When you see him kind of walking through the street doing his little, West Side Story singing in the rain around the pools. I mean, it's such a joy to watch. And I wasn't expecting to see that in this movie.
It is West Side Story. It is Singing in the Rain. It is an homage to a lot of that earlier filmmaking. I think that's why I found it so charming.
Yeah, me too. And I echo you exactly with the real star of the movie is Edgar Wright, which is almost the case in all of his films. And that's not meaning he's a style over substance. He is a script comes first, character driven. He knows how to tell a story, and he can keep his distinct style intact, which he's done through every one of his films, with the exception of Scott Pilgrim, in my opinion. But that's just me. There's some really funny moments in this movie. There's some really graphic, violent scenes in this movie, which I quite enjoyed. But just to be warned, they're there. You know, it's not Baby Driver is not baby in diaper steals mother's car and drives through New York and hijinks ensue. That's not what this movie is. Since Cece is our guest today on Cinema Gulp, I'm going to go ahead and let her do her first ever Gulp score for Baby Driver.
If it hadn't careened into a little bit of a cliche at the end, it would be a higher score, but I'm going to give it a 7.5, which is a very good, worthwhile film. See it in the cinema. Don't see it on a plane. It's not going to be the same experience. I really like the genre-defying place this has in the summer lineup. I think that it really puts Edgar Wright in a different category. I think he should be given even more opportunities to work with ensembles of this caliber. The film is unbelievably charming to watch.
Well said. I almost could not have said it better, especially when you talk about the genres of the summer. This is something that slipped into sort of a late June release that is so different than what usually the May you start getting a superhero front load, then you get a little more of that in July and you're fatigued as shit by all that stuff. I love that this came out when it did, right out on the heels of some Transformers that's just probably garbage, and you get to see something really quality, and I really hope that word of mouth spreads that it does well. I'm going to go a little higher just because I'm a big fan of the Cornetto trilogy and a big fan of space. To me, this is his finest piece of work. So I'm going to go 8.25 because I was just entertained all the way through, and I was not disappointed by some of its shortcomings, which were at the end. At least it ended different than I thought. Maybe not how I would have wanted it to, but the whole movie is such a fun ride. Such a great movie to see during the summer. Go out and see this movie. Okay, everyone, thanks so much for listening as always. Please leave a comment down in the comment section below. Click like and or subscribe today. You can find us at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr at Cinema Gulp. We want to thank Cece for being the special guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.
So for Cinema Gulp signing off, this is Ben.
And this is Cece. We drink your cinema.
I drink it up! Ow, baby!